is to do this, or you need to follow up on this data point, and these are the people you need to follow up with. Or it sometimes goes like, I'd really like to speak to this expert in this field. Do you know somebody? And of course they do.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. They're pretty amazing, Scientific Advisory Board.
How did you get hold of them? How did you find them?
So one guy, I presented to this investor in the US, Novo, and he said to me, Sam, every time you come back to me, you do everything you say, but I can't invest until you're like a $200 million company. But he said to me, what you need is a chief medical officer. And he said, go away, go to this guy and see what he says. And I went away to that guy, and that guy was David McGivney. And David said to me, I'd love to join your Scientific Advisory Board. And so his wife got sick, and he's passed us on to Steve, and Steve's just as good as David. So, and then the other two guys came from, our main investors know Brian. Brian he was head of R&D at Novartis. He lived 6 months. He lived 6 months of the year in Perth, and 6 months of the year in Switzerland, or Monaco.
Sounds nice.
I know. And then he then introduced us to, so Brian joined us, and then he said, you need somebody with respiratory drug expertise. Here's John. Introduced us to John. And I mean, John's just introduced us to somebody who's a respiratory clinician.
Right.
And, I just sent him a CDA last night. We'll see if he's interested. If he's interested, he might just want to be paid on an hourly basis, but if he's more interested, he might want to join the advisory board longer term. So it's just them it's like any sort of relationship, them getting to know us, us getting to know them.
So you have your talk, you decide that...
They've got to decide. A scientific advisor is a bit different to a contractor. Scientific advisors have to believe in what you're doing, and they have to want to be part of the team almost, and that's the way I work as well. They're not some person that's just on a website. But the contractors is a different process. You have to work, our manufacturing one is a big one. So we're spending $6 to $7 million on manufacturing, and so you have to, there's no way you're halfway into that, you're not saying I don't like these people. And honestly, it does happen.
So there's obviously been some bad situations. What did you do to get out? What did you resolve it or get out of it?
So it depends on the size of the contract. Because a lot of the stuff that we do is smaller, so you are doing small parcels of work. If you're not happy with them, it's over pretty much before you notice, and or you're not. Normally, it's not that it's not a relationship thing. It's communication, and it's also the quality of their work. I've got people say to me so many times, contractors saying, people don't normally ask these scientific questions. I'm like, I'm looking at your data and it doesn't look right. Why wouldn't I ask you? And so I think it is communication, but then the quality. So in terms of when it hasn't gone well, I think manufacturing, when we were doing 114, there were times when that wasn't going well. And the relationship-wise, Mick and I literally got on planes and we went and saw them in the UK, and we would go for a day. And so we would spend more time flying than seeing them. But sitting in a room face-to-face is the only way sometimes to get through some issues, because telephone conferences can go for an hour and then everyone's exhausted. And so I think that face-to-face contact, and then I just escalated things. I love saying, I want to talk to your manager. I want to talk to the manager. I want to talk to that person. I want to speak to your boss. And I did that twice at Fuji, where I was like, this is not the team I requested. We got a project manager changed out twice because they just weren't managing the project.
Right.
I wasn't happy. And so when you're paying that amount of money and you're not happy, you just got to say something.
Yeah.
And complain. And it's like you either get out of the contract or you don't, and in those instances you're not. There's no, and so you've got to manage it while you're in there, and to do that is give me another team, face to face, let's sort out the problems, let's go through every single issue, and that's the only way you can do it. And when you're working with manufacturing, there's so many things going on at once that it is the project manager at their end much as our end. And so if we're managing them and they're not doing it internally, it's almost an impossible task.
Yeah.
And so when we had a bad project manager, it was hopeless. Like, so he's not pulling together presentations in time, he's not giving us the data we need, like, you know, and you know that that's happening, you can get a sense of it.
How much do these different contract researchers coordinate between each other, or do they come to you?
We're the coordinator because they're doing what we want.
Right, so they never communicate between the two?
No.
Right.
No.
That's not a good idea?
No, they're not. That's not their job.
No.
Like, and they don't know. They're all under confidentiality.
Yeah.
None of them know that. Well, we disclose KBI and Selexis, and we disclose Fuji, but we're never disclosing who else. And we disclose Corey.
Yeah.
People will come to me and say, "Oh, you've worked with Corey. Can I get his contact details?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." But like, Corey will never ever speak to anybody about what we do, ever. Because he's under confidentiality.
Yeah. And so, success stories, are there some that you just go, yeah, these are just stellar contractors to work with?
Well, our current manufacturers are amazing.
Yeah.
Like, Fuji got the job done in a minute, in the end, but they were hard work, like hard work. And the first few calls that I was on, and I think the two things happened. So we employed Dallas. Dallas is just a manufacturing expert internally.
So what's his role at the company?
He's Chief Operating Officer.
Okay.
So his job is to manage them.
Yeah.
I was doing it previously. And so that's just a relief from my point of view. But secondly, Dallas knows what he's talking about, but these guys are a step above Fuji, but I think that's because Dallas has made that happen.
Yeah.
I have the gluten-free ones.
Gluten.
Thanks. You just get on calls with them and they're a breeze.
Right.
Like, they've done all the work, the project manager gets us the presentations ahead of time, she's pulled it all together, you know, so these contract manufacturers, as a process, we tendered to 12 different CMOs, a $6 million project. We got down to 2. We then
how did you get down from, was it
quotes, what the outline was.
So you looked at price,
what the work was. So in their scope of work, if they've not included everything, we can tell straight away because we know what we're talking about. And so then the other thing is we then started talking to people. So we did reference checks without them. So Malcolm McCall at Viralytics had used one of them, and so I rang Malcolm, sat down and said, "What was your experience with this group?" He told me. Most people would just tell you. They're not telling you anything that's confidential.
So people are very honest about their experiences.
Then we asked them, then we did, we had multiple calls. So before we signed up with any of these people, we had one call. You start in a call, 1 hour call, you ask them questions. So what would you do in this situation? Half of them can't answer it. It's immediately off the list. So we had our own set of almost like an interview questions. And if you can't answer those questions, you're not getting the job.
So what were your basic questions? So you had scenarios?
You know, it's a while ago now, but you know, what would you do to try and improve yields, or what would you do in this situation, or process development, and how do you manage this, or, you know, just different scenarios of the manufacturing process.
Right.
I think when we got down to the final two, we did do reference check. It was pricing. We went back to one of them and said, you're 30% more than the other one. And they came back and dropped immediately 30%, which is just astounding.
Yes.
So like price checking, like you do with everything. And then we asked them for references. And they gave us 2 references each, and we called those people, so people they were currently working with,